Yes.
Coming up on the 10 p.m. report, Minnesota feels the effects of the shuttle tragedy.
Here, as in most places, people saw the event over and over again on television and asked why.
Tonight, flags in our area serve as one reminder of what a day it has been.
We'll talk live with a local teacher who knew Christa McAuliffe and who would also have been on that shuttle.
And as official Washington mourns the tragedy tonight, some politicians question the actions of NASA and the wisdom of future manned spaceflight.
The 10 p.m. report is coming up next. You are watching WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is the 10 p.m. report.
A shuttle swooping toward the desert. It's become a symbol of success and safety that we've associated with the United States space program. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, that image has been shattered by a fireball that claimed 7 lives today.
It was a fireball that turned one teacher's vision of triumph into tragedy. As the morning began, there was little hint that this manned space flight would be any different from the preceding 56 flights. The crew waved to the cameras, then boarded the craft. But just over 1 minute into the flight, something went wrong.
Engine now at 104%. Challenger, go with throttle up. Challenger, go with throttle up.
Oh my God.
Apparently exploded. Impact in the water at a point approximately 28.64 degrees north.
I regret that I have to report that based on very preliminary searches of the ocean where the Challenger impacted this morning, these searches have not revealed any evidence that the crew of Challenger survived.
It will be months before we know, if we ever know, what caused Challenger to explode and why 7 astronauts were killed. But scientists are already speculating on the cause based on the videotape pictures of the flight. This stop-action video of Challenger begins at 1 minute 10 seconds into flight, and a flame appears at the base of the shuttle, the spacecraft, and 1 rocket booster outlined here. The arrow points to a flame pattern in the vicinity of the ducts that supply the highly explosive liquid hydrogen to Challenger's main engines. A 3rd flame flares on the underbelly of Challenger near the point at which he joins the main rocket. Then what is being called the catastrophic failure. The shuttle is enveloped in flame. A fireball propelled skyward at more than 900 knots, and even now, the NASA monitors indicate no malfunction. And then the final explosion. Either the main liquid fuel rocket or the Challenger herself explodes. A huge cloud of smoke, debris, and crystallized hydrogen snow hang in the clear blue sky. The solid rocket boosters continuing on their own, and the Challenger and her crew destroyed. And tonight there is no explanation. Pat?
Whatever caused the devastation in the sky has also caused deep sorrow on the ground. Among the crew of 7 was a woman picked to represent the nation's teachers and who came to symbolize the ability of all of us to eventually reach the stars. Christa McAuliffe was selected for the program after a nationwide search. And today at the junior high school where she taught social studies, students helped count down the liftoff. But the students' joy turned to stunned silence as a tragedy came to them over the television screen. Eventually, the students returned to their classes, many of them in tears. Counselors were brought in to reassure them. And on the streets of Concord, friends remembered McAuliffe and her family.
On Saturday night, her little girl said to me, "Is Mommy in space yet?" And I said, "No, not yet, pretty soon." And everybody was just so happy. Everybody was so thrilled that out of 11,000 teachers, Christa was the one that was selected.
It was just last July that President Reagan announced McAuliffe's selection. She went through weeks of training and said she hoped to demystify space for the nation's students.
A Minnesota teacher was among the finalists considered for the space shuttle mission that ended in tragedy today. Her name is Catherine Cook Levine, and the Apple Valley High School teacher joins us live from her home now in Apple Valley. Thank you very much for joining us. This has to be a day for you. Your head must just be spinning with thoughts. What are your first thoughts tonight?
Well, my first thoughts are disbelief. I just can't believe that it actually happened, and it happened at this mission. I would have believed it, I guess, of another more experimental mission, but I thought this was pretty well organized.
Catherine, as a teacher, what do you think the students' reaction will be today to this tragedy, and how do you intend to talk to your own students about this?
I've They've been very supportive. They're obviously moved by the event. It was very obvious that they were shocked and taken aback. Students stared at me, some talked to me, and my colleagues were very shocked and very supportive. I need to talk to them. I had shared with them Monday, I'd gotten back from Orlando on Monday, and I had shared with them my excitement of the space program, showed them the tile I'd gotten from the shuttle, and showed them, or told them again about their future in space. Now I have to go back and put this more in perspective of what happened.
Catherine, for the first time since early on in the space program, probably more of the nation's children, this is just a guess, probably more of the nation's children were paying attention to this flight as a result of Christa McAuliffe. How are we going to tell, as parents, relatives, how are we going to talk to our children about what occurred today?
I think the tragedy of the moment can't be overstated, and the personal sorrow and the sense of personal loss needs to be dealt with on a very, very personal basis. I think everyone's feelings need to be exposed and talked about. But in a couple of days, when the wounds heal and the shock is a little more over, I think we can talk again of space and the program and the wonderment that is there and that is available to pioneers and to all people in America. But
excuse me, we have to go, but we can't go without asking you the final question. If you had the opportunity, would you apply again, and would you go if selected?
maybe not this week, but I'd go again.
That's understandable, Catherine. Thank you very much for taking time out of what has to be an awful day for you to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most of us didn't know Christa McAuliffe, the others aboard Challenger, but most Americans share in the pride of the space program, and tonight people in the Twin Cities share in the grief of this disaster. Now, many people will always remember the exact moment they heard about today's explosion. Dave Nimmer reports.
There was no escape from the moment here in Dayton's basement. It came at them from a dozen different angles on 100 different screens, but the picture was the same. At first they trickled in, and later they came by the dozens. It was almost as if they had to see it for themselves to make it real. Some rushed over during lunch hours. Some had been shopping upstairs, and some just happened by. They didn't talk to each other. They didn't even look at each other. They just stared at the screen.
First thing I felt is I just prayed that they knew the Lord, that you never know when your time is up. And this is, it's just too bad that it happened, and I just feel for the people that are their relatives that are still living.
Many of those watching here on the university campus had a more direct stake in what happened today. They are aerospace engineering students.
I came here expecting to see a beautiful liftoff, and now this happens. But I think I heard something the president said a little while ago that kind of made sense to me, is that you have to pick yourself up after something like this. And the true measure of people is how they pick themselves up after a tragedy like this.
That's the struggle this evening, to make sense of it, to give meaning to it. Perhaps it's enough to know that we've not become masters of all, that in this universe, we can still be tiny and frail and helpless. With Gordon Bartu.
Tonight, the president and lawmakers, our lawmakers, are much like the public, disturbed, also shocked. But in the long run, they will have more to say about the space program's future. Skip Loescher joins us now from Washington with details of the president's speech today and reaction from Minnesota Congressman. Skip.
Pat, shuttle launches have become so routine the networks didn't even cover today's live, and even though the congressional TV system did, most lawmakers simply didn't watch. But by now, the pictures of that horrible explosion have been indelibly etched in all our minds. Tonight, the Capitol was to be filled with dignitaries, politicians, and the media. Instead, the cold winter wind sweeps over a parking lot and building that are virtually deserted. The State of the Union postponed for a week. And earlier, the voices which so often engage in rancorous debate spoke mostly in hushed tones of tribute to the shuttle's crew, as did the man who was to have addressed them tonight.
The crew of the Space Shuttle Challenger honored us for the manner in which they lived their lives. We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye and slipped the surly bonds of Earth to touch the face of God.
Emotion also filled two of the lawmakers who have soared into space.
I don't know of any time that I have been more shocked or more moved than when my first wife was killed in an automobile accident. And so it's been very, very difficult for me this morning.
Oh, my reaction was a profound sense of loss, I guess, that this day had finally come that we'd hoped would never arrive.
The president promises that other shuttles will soar into space. The teachers and other civilians will be among the crews. But before that happens, Congress wants the answers to a lot of questions. And there are those who may well use the Challenger tragedy to argue that the dwindling supply of federal money should be spent helping people on Earth, rather than to send people into the heavens. And as our Alan Cox has learned, some of those who apparently feel that way are from Minnesota. Alan?
As you say, Skip, today's loss reopens differences among the Minnesota congressional delegation about the wisdom of space travel. But it has united the Minnesotans in sorrow for Challenger's crew. The spacecraft lost, the fruitless search of the Atlantic, was, as a Minnesota representative put it, an American tragedy. Minnesota has shared the American triumphs of space exploration, but not all the state's congressmen have supported every detail and dollar of the space program. In the mid-70s, with 2% of the country's population, Minnesota got only 0.5% of NASA's budget. Senator Walter Mondale complained that the proposed space shuttle amounted to a gold-plated truck. This afternoon, one congressman said it appears NASA lost track of safety, trying to make the shuttle seem a good investment.
I have voted against the NASA budget over several years because I feel that much of what we accomplish in the manned spaceflight program can be achieved with equipment at far less cost and with the same, or very nearly the same, scientific results.
Fellow Democrat Bruce Vento issued a statement saying the country has spent nearly $40 billion on the shuttle program that is unable to guarantee safety. Oberstar said the use of non-astronauts by NASA appears to be a public relations gesture. But another Minnesotan on Capitol Hill said he'd ride the shuttle tomorrow, given the chance. He endorsed NASA's attention to safety and its ability to investigate itself.
I really hope we return to the normal schedule as quickly as we can. I think that I put confidence in the NASA people. And as soon as they've completed that investigation and assured themselves that we can move ahead with the space program, I really think we should move ahead with it.
In a radio message, Senator Dave Durenberger said the advance of the space shuttle program would be the greatest tribute to the 7 lost today. That debate over the value of the space program is likely to intensify in the months ahead as Congress tries to balance the budget. For officials tonight, though, the big question, as with the rest of us, is what went wrong. Skip?
Alan, thank you. It will, of course, take weeks, if not months, of painstaking investigation before that question can be answered. And until it is answered, NASA has grounded the space shuttle program. Don?
Thank you, Skip.
The Science Museum of Minnesota had planned to premiere a movie about the space shuttle program tonight in St. Paul. They went ahead with their plans at the Omni Theater. Mike Walsher was there. He has this report.
Tonight, special guests of the Science Museum of Minnesota viewed the premiere of The Dream is Alive. The film is a 35-minute tribute to past successes of the shuttle program, a bitter contrast to what happened to Challenger today. It's a contrast that caused the museum to cancel a band scheduled to perform at what was supposed to be the premiere celebration. And it nearly caused the museum to cancel this showing entirely.
Rather, we dedicate what is obviously a very sober and emotional and a thoughtful evening as a tribute, a memorial tribute, if you will, to the individuals whose lives were lost today, those individuals for whom a dream was to be realized today.
The film includes scenes of astronauts Judy Resnick and Dick Scobie on a previous mission. Both died today. People who saw it say the film moved them deeply and reaffirmed what the space program is all about.
I think it was particularly appropriate for us to see it tonight and realize what they've done for our country.
What were your feelings sitting through it?
I was there. I was probably there more, having gone through the tragedy of today.
I've never seen anything like it. It's unbelievable. And it's a great tribute to the people that died so tragically today.
I just wanted to see it go. I really wanted to be a success today. See this be a success, since that wasn't a success. So I very much did.
The Science Museum begins public showings of The Dream is Alive tomorrow afternoon. The museum says the film is dedicated to the memory of the 7 who chased the stars. I'm Mike Walsher, WCCO Television News, St. Paul.
Tonight's performance should have been a joyous homecoming for former Minnesotan Pinky Nelson, an astronaut on 2 shuttle missions. He arrived in St. Paul this afternoon with plans to be the guest of honor at that grand opening. Instead, he was met with the news of the explosion and word from NASA that he should return to Houston. Nelson would not answer questions. He did have a personal statement.
I'm anxious to return to be with my family and the families of my colleagues. And I know you share with me the personal tragedy. Challenger had an outstanding crew. They were certainly professionals, and they were my friends.
It had been almost 19 years to the day since the only other deaths occurred in the U.S. space program, and those happened on the launch pad. Astronauts Virgil Gus Grissom, Edward White, Roger Chaffee were preparing for their final practice run for the first manned space flight of Apollo 1. An electrical fire started in the command module. All 3 died in seconds.
Then, as now, the space program did not come to an end. NASA says it will wait for a full investigation, though, before it launches another space shuttle. But there is no indication that this was our last shuttle. The push for space exploration, fostered by President John Kennedy, goes on, sometimes, as we learned today, at a high price.
We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won. And they must be won and used for the progress of all people.
We'll continue our quest in space. There will be more shuttle flights and more shuttle crews, and yes, more volunteers, more civilians, more teachers in space. Nothing ends here.
Oh my God.
We will never forget them, nor the last time we saw them this morning, as they prepared for their journey and waved goodbye, and slipped the surly bonds of earth to touch the face of God.
Soon you will be asked to vote in a
Fostered by President John Kennedy goes on, sometimes, as we learned today, at a high price.
We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won.